problem is that we're not
Blacks
telling
here in
the
this
kids
city have
starting
made
to use
significant
drugs earlier
contributions.
in life than they ever have.
Welcome to Minority Focus. I'm your host, Jimmie Moore. We've got a lot of interesting things going on in the city. It seems like we're becoming the entertainment city of this area, pretty much. Got a lot of good things going on. And one of those things that's coming up is called Paducah Poetry Jam. I don't know what that's all about, but the director of the Market House Theater, Michael Cochran, does. He's going to tell you all about it.
Okay.
Go for it, Michael.
Well, a couple months ago, the interracial men's group and women's group of Paducah approached the Market House Theater about doing something. And this happened right after the Don Imus incident happened. And we were talking about doing something to have different voices in the community. And that's something that is very important to the theater. So we talked for a while, and we kind of came up with the idea of what if we did something that was kind of like Def Poetry Jam, which is the HBO show that was co-created with Bruce George. And we said this would get people to write in their own words and speak in their own words and do a performance piece about what it's like to live in Paducah, you know, what our culture's like, and get some of those voices in the community up on stage or in a public atmosphere. And theater it has a wonderful thing it does. It provides a safe environment to present things that sometimes get really political, really difficult to talk about. But if you can do a play or you can do something that's an art event, it starts that conversation. It gives you a starting point when people sometimes don't know how to start that conversation. So we looked at doing a poetry event. And it's not the standard poetry that you think of when somebody is doing Robert Frost or something like that. This has a rhythm. It has a lot of interior beat going on to it. And the wonderful thing I love about it is that it's generational too. You can have a 17-year-old who is passionate about the things in his life, and you can have a 70-year-old who's passionate. And when you hear those two pieces of poetry side by side, it really gives you an appreciation of how some things are different, but a lot's the same.
Right.
And the thing that really drew me in about the Poetry Jam is there was a piece of poetry, and I can't even pronounce the poet's name, but his piece of poetry was called "It All Depends on the Skin You're In." And it was a wonderful piece about him driving downtown in New York to go visit his girlfriend. And that trip, and it was a piece that really gave you a view of life from different perspectives, and people could see that and really get a step into somebody else's life for a minute. And that really appealed to us. So we decided to do a Paducah Poetry Jam. And out of the blue, Bruce George, who was surfing the web one night, came across an article about the Paducah Poetry Jam. So he contacted the groups and said he would like to help us do this. So we had some correspondence with him, and we flew him in from New York, and he did a workshop for us a couple weeks ago to help get the community focused on what this was going to be, and to help some writers to do their stuff and kind of get some feedback from them. And he was wonderful. I mean, we had about 20 people, I think, that showed up for the workshop, and they all walked out of there feeling great. You know, and
Wow.
it was a positive. He's such a powerful presence and an inspiring kind of presence, and he's doing so many different things with so many different groups across the country. You know, I don't want to talk too much about Bruce, but he's got a book coming out next spring, which he's gotten over 150 different gang members from different gangs to do a book of poetry, to put their stuff together. And as he says, they're calling him up all the time going, when's the book going to come out? And if you can imagine gang members who have come from different backgrounds, different points of view, all coming together on a project, that's kind of what we hope to do with Paducah Poetry Jam.
Right. I mean, I would think that there's a thin line between poets and rappers. You're going to get a lot of that probably. Is that
Well, what he said, I mean, Bruce said this, and I thought it was great, is that hip-hop music has a beat to it. And a lot of times, the lyrics in hip-hop music kind of hide behind the beat. But when you're doing poetry, you can get that beat, but you can't hide behind it. The words are out there, and you're going to get a lot of that sense of that kind of hip-hop, that sense of rhythm and of style of speech, talking to people that gets them worked up, that gets them moving. And I thought he had a great comment too about everything's political. Just the way you look at life is political. And if you're not political, you're intentionally not political, so you're still being political. You know, so what you view your life as and what you view the things around you really are a way to communicate that. You know, and poetry is wonderful because it allows you to put that into a form that's kind of elevated. You know, it gets you involved. It frees you up with images and with all kinds of things. And I just think it's a great opportunity.
How are you going to limit this? I mean, you know, like is it open like to the general public?
It's open to the general public. What we're doing is we're asking people to submit their poetry by, there's a certain deadline date that they have to submit that by, and then they will pick, I think between 10, maybe 7 to 10 different pieces. And the people will perform it that night. We're trying to keep this within an hour time frame, and the limit is a 3-minute piece. So you can have the piece in front of you and you can read it, you can have it memorized, but we want people to perform that, to stand up, and we want to hear their voice and their words.
Right, right. It sounds remarkable. This is going to be a pretty unique event. Is it only going to be that one night, or
it's going to be one night, but we're hoping that this will be the start of something on a more regular basis. This will be the first one, and if there's an interest in that, then we'll do probably a quarterly or a couple times a year. We'll do this, and people can submit their stuff, and we'll have more workshops. Bruce has offered to come back anytime and help us out.
And I heard that he was here. I heard about him. Someone was saying to me, if you can get down there, you know, by so-and-so time, come down there and meet this guy. He's awesome, you know, phenomenal kind of person. I had no idea. You know.
He started out, he told his story at the workshop. He started out as a gang member and was thrown out of a couple different schools and was always in trouble. And his mother was an artist, and he got hooked on poetry. And he was sitting there watching Def Comedy Jam one night. And saying, you got a stage, you got a microphone, and you got an audience. And poetry is the perfect thing to do that. There are events throughout the country which are called poetry slams. And we're not going to the extent that they do. They have judges, and they pick a winner. I mean, and in some of the poetry slams, the audience holds up signs. You know, what they think. We'll give that a 9. We'll give that a 10, you know. We're not going the competition route, but there are teams of poets from different cities across the country who compete in poetry slams. And there's a national poetry slam. And that's what Bruce came in to talk a little bit about too, is that if we develop this and really find a voice from Paducah, you know, find a group of people from Paducah, there's no reason why we couldn't participate in that.
Sure, poetry's such a mind-opening kind of thing. It's so creative in that it creates your creativity.
Right.
Because you have to put it together. You have to bring something. You know exactly what I'm saying.
Well, you know, it's that kind of language that music is. You know, that it's heightened language is what we call it in theater. It's that sense of talking about something that you really can't define. It's when you try to talk about a feeling or a way you see things, it's really hard to define in words. So you have to kind of paint a picture of it with words. You have to get a sense of that rhythm and the beat that's going on with that picture that you're seeing, and poetry can give you the language to do that.
Is prose going to be a part of this?
There was, we had a couple people who gave us short stories, and as long as we keep within the 3-minute time period, and at the workshop, Gladman Humbles read a part of his story that he had, and it was really wonderful to, I mean, he's a great writer, and to hear him read that, you know, with his voice saying those words, and it wasn't a poetry piece per se, but it had that sense of it. It kind of took you and painted that picture of it for you.
Right. Before I forget, if you know off the top of your head, one of the dates for tell me the dates for this again, and the place and all of that.
It will happen at the Market House Theater. It is a Saturday, the first Saturday in November. I think that's Saturday, November 3rd, I do believe. I could be the 4th, I'm not sure. But it's the first Saturday in November. And it will be at the Market House Theater in the main theater. If people are interested in submitting poetry for that or being a part of that, they need to contact the theater, give us a call at the box office at 444-6828, and we can direct them on to who to send their poetry to. And the deadline for poetry is the end of this month,
Right.
of September. And we're trying to really, if we have a lot of them, we may extend it just a little bit to make sure everybody has a chance to participate.
Because November is just right around the corner.
Right,
It'll be next year before you know it. For whatever reason, things of this nature, plays and so many other things that the Market House does, I think a conception amongst a number of people is that it's only about summer activities. I don't know if a lot of people are fully aware of all that goes on all year round. I mean, even down during the winter months, like the play that's going to be happening in February. That's You think about summer events, you know, when you think about Market House most of the time. Maybe not, well, a few. I said a few people. I didn't say. I think the majority of people know, are in touch with what's going on, because people look for things to do. I mean, and the things that go on there are very, very interesting things. We spoke before the show began about a play that I was in some years ago, and that was the first play I'd been in since 6th grade, and it was tiring and trying and all of that, but it was fun, and it was interesting and all of that.
That's kind of, I mean, that's why this poetry event fits so well with the mission of the theater, because the mission of the theater is to bring local talent to life, and it is to everyday people who've got that something inside of them that says, I was in a play in school, or I was in a play at church, or, I really want to do something creative. That's what the theater's about, is everyday people coming to do plays. And we have auditions on a regular basis. It's open to the community. Anybody can audition. Anybody can be involved in it. We provide the training. We have professional staff, professional directors, and actors who walk in or people off the street and go, I have never been in a play but thought I'd like to do one. And we have that all the time.
Right?
And they get cast in plays.
Is that right?
And we rehearse for about 4 or 5 weeks and get it so that it's a professional quality production, and people have a great time. It's a great way to meet other people in the community as a social event, but it's also a way that kind of gives you, as you said, you do that and it brings something out of you. There's that chance to kind of step outside yourself for a little bit and be somebody or something that the community goes, that was really great.
Yes.
How did you do that?
It was a wonderful feeling, I'll never forget. And as you said, you meet people from the community that you're not even aware of. They're here. You may have seen their faces from time to time. There were several people I met from, I'll say, my community, but several people I met and got to know somewhat, that when I see them now, there's that very special bond between us because we did that.
Well, there's not many places where you get to be a part of something. That's what we're hoping with the Poetry Jam too, that you get to open up yourself and be a little vulnerable with a group of supportive people. And that's tough to do when you're talking about, okay, we need you to feel upset, or we need you to cry, or we need you to do, this is what the part demands. And you kind of pull from yourself, and when you work through that process of getting that out, there's a part of each person in those characters on stage, and that's a special group of people who all bond together and make that special thing happen. And the thing about theater is, it's only there while it's being performed.
Sure.
7 years later, you'll remember moments from the show, but it doesn't exist anymore, but it was a special event in life.
For sure. I remember when we were kids growing up, one of the older girls would have talent shows. We would sit on the porch at night, and we had a walkway out to the street, and everybody had to do something. Whether it was say a poem or whatever. And I remember saying, I went to a party, I ate too much cake. And this is the pill that I had to take. Oh, what a lovely cake. but it was, but it was something.
Yeah.
You know, and one of the sisters sang or whatever. You know, and it's a unique thing to get up. You know, I'm not telling you anything. I know all that I could say about theater and acting and all of that. You know, but just to express that. It's a heck of a thing to get up in front of a crowd of people and do something like that. Like you said earlier, especially an accepting crowd.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and a whole other thing is, you know, the crowd is not accepting
Right.
or objection, you know, to whatever you're saying, but to know that you're received,
Right.
and that each and every person is going to be in that same position,
Mm-hmm.
you know, of uncertainty and all of this, and then to get that comfort zone, you know, where you know it's okay, and then the applause afterwards. That's a beautiful.
It's a wonderful experience, you know, and it's something that doesn't happen a lot. People are more afraid of public speaking than they are of snakes. It's a true, I mean, surveys show that. People are afraid of getting up in public, but if you do something that kind of pushes you outside that comfort zone just a little bit, but you've got the support, you've got the community, stand up in front of the community and do something that everybody can applaud, is something that everybody kind of dreams about doing, you know, to stand up there and be recognized for the community for doing something special. Right. And some people do it in sports, you know, they've got an athletic talent, and some people do it through a personal performance kind of thing. Right. And the thing that really the theater wants to do more of is to tell different kinds of stories, to bring the stories from all the communities that are in town and put those on stage, because I think the more you see other people's stories, the more you can identify with other people and go, you know, we're not that different. Right. We got the same feelings, we got the same emotions, and you see it in a different way, and you go, well, I never thought about it that way.
Exactly.
And there's too much barrier between us, but when you see something on stage, it kind of breaks that barrier down a little bit, and you get to be inside that person for a while, that character. Right. You know, and there are some wonderful plays and stories that the theater would like to produce and would like to have more members of the community, of all communities, telling their story on stage. Right. And that's how the Poetry Jam kind of came into being.
Wow. As you were talking, I was thinking about back in the 60s, I went to a college, a summer program, Murray State University. Met a lot of people there from Paducah. I grew up in Hickman. I met a lot of people from Paducah. And one of the nicest people I'd ever met, I think, was this guy. I'm not going to say his name yet. But I don't know for sure exactly how many years passed that I didn't see him, didn't know of his existence anymore. And then I went to a play at the Market House Theater one night, and there was Archie doing Driving Miss Daisy. Right. Blew me totally away, and he was awesome. He was awesome. It's just so unique how the diversity of people that can be drawn together in this sort of thing. You know, it makes for so many different kinds of happies. You know, that go on inside.
And there's people too who the theater, they're having a tough time in life trying to find a place to fit in. You know, and we laugh all the time about the theater attracts people who have a hard time fitting in sometimes, because they're, you know, it's like the people who excel at the arts are the ones who don't fit the square peg in the square hole. They're a little more creative, or they're kind of, you know, outside the comfort zone sometimes, and you don't know what to do. But the arts just take that and they give an outlet for that, a way to be creative that doesn't have to be exactly uniform every single time.
Right. Is there a growth as a result? Like,
oh, sure.
After you've involved yourself and then you step outside of that?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
We have a huge educational program, and parents constantly come up and tell us how being involved with the workshops that we do in theater has just expanded their kids' horizon so much, because it's like they were afraid to step outside themselves a little bit, or they were afraid to express their feelings. And when you're in, whether it's, you know, art or music or theater, you find a way to express yourself in a way that is personal, and yet other people can kind of see that. And especially in theater, kids all the time, the parents come up and say, my kid is doing so much better in school, because they're not afraid to stand up in front of the class and give a report. Or we'll do a thing where we will have an improv exercise, and some of the shyest kids in the world who desperately want to do something, and the group kind of takes them in. There's a game that the kids do called Ruin My Day. It's a park bench. And one kid, and these are elementary, I mean, these are like first graders, second graders sitting on a bench. One kid sits on a bench and another kid comes over and tries to annoy the first person enough to make them move off the bench. Then they become the person sitting on the bench and the next kid comes up. Well, there are kids who are so terminally shy that it's an easy game to play. How annoying can you be? You know, and it just, you can watch their personality just kind of slowly blooming every time they play that game.
Right.
And we do games like that all the time.
That sounds neat. I had no idea that sort of thing went on down there. It's been a lot of years since I was involved.
Every Saturday morning, our class is for kids of all ages, and we've got they're real inexpensive. We've got scholarships too, if people can't afford them. We've got the ability for everybody to participate in some way at the theater, and it's not going to cost you anything. You can do a play, and it doesn't cost you anything but time.
For sure.
You know, that's the only thing we ask is give us the time, and we can give you an experience.
For all the stuff that's going to be going on, that goes on, that's going to be going on, if people just want to give some time, can they just walk down and say, "Hey, Michael, can I help you with something? Do you need
Sure.
anything? Put me to work."
I mean, we do. Theater is fun because it takes carpenters, it takes people who can sew costumes, it takes people who can paint sets. Somebody can walk in and say, I always wanted to get involved, but I don't know what to do. Well, here's a paintbrush, paint that wall blue. You know, you can do that, or you can do, I always wanted to audition for plays. Well, come on down and watch the auditions. You know, or if I wanted to pass out programs, you can see a show at the Market House Theater for free, just sign up to usher. You know, and you get to see the shows for free.
Exactly.
There's a way that everybody can be involved, and some people don't want to be on that stage. They want to be behind the scenes.
Exactly.
You know, and they love making things happen. And it is a group that comes together around a show and becomes family for a while, and that's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, I imagine it, and hopefully after. Not that you need any publicity from here.
We need publicity everywhere we can get it.
after seeing this show, some more people that aren't as aware of what's going on will be more aware and want to become more involved. I certainly hope so. Is that like a big? Is it a bunch of people? A lot of people involved on a permanent basis with what goes on at the Market House?
I mean, we have about 300 to 400 people who will volunteer through the course of a year. And that includes the performers, the ushers, the stage crew help. But most of them are only involved for short time periods. You know, it's kind of like this fits in fact, when actors are looking at things or people are looking at a show, they say, I've got a window from January to February where I can be involved. What's going on? And we need people from January to February. We need people from May through June for the big musical. The big musical generally has over 30 people, and people can, it's like, I can't sing a solo, but I can sing with a chorus. Come on down and audition.
Right.
There's a lot of people who pick times of years and say, I'm gonna audition for something because this is my only time of year I can do it. And we find that just like everything else, once you do it, there's that something that comes alive, that spark, and you find other ways to be creative in life, and maybe it opens up a chance to do some poetry, or maybe it opens up, I've always kind of wanted to do this. It's a way to start that creative process going, and we get so deadened in life by working and coming home and doing the same thing.
Sure.
Sometimes you need to just step out a little bit and be creative.
For sure. I know there's when it comes to poetry, that people are diverse in their thinking, in their organization or poetry or whatever, but you have to listen. You may hear something. If you listen, you can. For example, a rapper some years ago wrote a line I thought was the most ridiculous line I'd ever heard in rap. He said, "When I see you again, we'll kiss and cuddle. I'll throw down my coat so you can walk over a puddle." I thought that was absurd. But after a period of time, one day it dawned on me, I read about a man named Sir Francis Drake putting his coat down on a puddle for a lady to walk over when I was a kid. Maybe that guy read the same book. But I judged what he was doing without thinking about his thought patterns, And the people that are going to be in the Poetry Jam aren't going to have to worry about that. this judgmental thing. They're just going to be able to create and get that out there. Well, I think it's fantastic, and I hope it goes so well. What was the gentleman's name that came from Def Comedy Jam?
Bruce George.
He's going to know what happened.
Yeah,
I'm sure he'll want
we're
to.
staying in touch with him, and he's been really helpful. He has one of the actors from New York Undercover has written some plays, and he's kind of hooked me up with him to say maybe the Market House Theater could be something that could put on one of his plays, or he might come in to do something. So we're talking on a lot of different levels, and this opens up a lot of different doors, for us to bring different voices to the community, to put it on stage so that the community can come and share in those stories.
Exactly, and the notion too that you'd like for some of the poetry to be about what it's like to live in Paducah.
Right.
On my job, the conversations I hear sometimes at the counters, people's comments who've come here, who live here, talking about this city and how much they care about. I've heard some of them. I wish I had some of those conversations to use, for the comedy. I mean, for the poetry jam, because a lot of people are very proud of living here. And I often say, I don't want to live anywhere else. I simply cherish living here. I think it's beautiful, and it's growing, and it's becoming. Somebody sent me a book of activities from Madison, Wisconsin, about all their we've got it going on here like that too. Maybe on a smaller scale. We've got it going on here. Michael, I appreciate you coming, man, and talking to me.
It's been a pleasure.
Thanks a lot. I wish the best. And if I've got some time, I'll stroll down through there and see if...
Write some poetry. Come on down.
I've already got a little something.
Good.
Give me a pen here. When I worked at the Illinois Central Gulf Railroad, the man I was training with left me on a caboose one day. He said, just stay here. And there wasn't a thing for me to do but sit. I saw a piece of cardboard laying on the floor. I had a stub of a pencil. And I wrote, "Mine sword does slice the enemy in two, but yet doth not each half become instead the whole sum of the one." For Minority Focus, I'm Jimmie Moore.
Good.